Dandy Don Meredith was always quick with a quip. But the Cowboys quarterback learned early on that deeds, not words, define true leadership, in life or in an NFL huddle.
There were two books. We had the Bible and a book called Leaves of Gold. Out of Leaves of Gold, there's a deal that says, I'd rather see a sermon than hear one any day. I'd rather one would walk with me than merely show the way. For the eye is a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Fine counsel is confusing, but examples are always clear.
When Meredith said something, he said it in such a charming way that you just wanted to play for him. When I was a kid growing up, there were certain players that lived in my neighborhood that you always wanted to hang with because that particular player oozed with confidence, oozed with fellowship and camaraderie and team attitude. That's the way Meredith was. He brought us from nowhere, absolute expansion team nowhere, thrown together with a bunch of players that were discarded, and within 4 or 5 years started to win.
He came up to the line of scrimmage and everything else with this cocky air. I'm going to get it done. And more or less, you guys can't stop me. Because if Don could go back and get in that hot streak, he could throw the football with anybody.
Meredith loved winning, but he also enjoyed having fun, even if his down-home humor was displayed in the unlikeliest of settings.
He would come in the huddle at times when everybody was serious and we were being beaten to a pulp, he would maybe crack a joke, and that kind of livened things up. I'm not sure if that sat well all the time with Tom Landry.
He made everybody feel relaxed and most of the time, and of course sometimes I questioned what he was doing.
He had some friends that were makeup artists in the movie-making business. So Don had them to make him up with a cut down his forehead. It looked like a 4-inch gash. It looked like he'd been in a car wreck. And, he really looked awful. And he came into the meeting, and Coach Landry and the rest of us almost passed out. That was typical to Don. He just thought it was fun to do things like that.
We had the most outrageous quarterback of them all. Would you rather play with Troy Aikman or Don Meredith? Aikman is like McDonald's. He's like a franchise. Meredith was fun.
Coach Landry, I think, put me in a room with Don to kind of help get him in on curfew time. I think the only time I really lost him was in New York, and we had our Division I, and we were going to the last game to play the Giants. Don came in a little later, quite somewhat later, really to tell the truth, and he was not in good shape when he came in. And he went into the game, I think he threw 2 or 3 interceptions, and he was leading the quarterbacks in the league in passing going into that game. With the 3 interceptions, it dropped him down. He didn't win the passing crown because of that one night out, but that was Don. That particular stat wasn't that important to him. Having fun with the people and everything was more important at that time.
The Giants' game was meaningless, but when the Cowboys had to win, few other quarterbacks played harder or sacrificed more of themselves than Meredith.
I probably didn't do it the way a lot of other folks did, but I kind of resent the fact that somebody says that I took my job lightly and it in any way didn't give my maximum effort anytime I went out there. And I feel good about that. I think that I did do that.
Most quarterbacks would never have survived with the early teams that Don had to play with. Don was beat up as much as any one human being that I've ever seen, and still he came to play.
With the beatings came the booings, and after 3 straight playoff defeats, Cowboy crowds were screaming for Don's backup.
When the fans say we want Morton constantly, and I felt bad for Don, and I remember going to him one time and I said, Don, I'm sorry that this is happening, all these we want Morton. He says, don't be sorry, it's going to happen to you too.
After we had lost badly to Cleveland, 38-19 or something, but it was worse than the score indicated. We went into this restaurant and somebody noticed Don and I, and they started booing him. And the people sat there in this restaurant and stood up and booed him until we left.
And I said when I thought it was time to go, it really wasn't much fun anymore. That's pretty much what it was. But I'm so happy that I got to play. I had, people say, well, what was it like? And I can say, I had days where I was in the zone. And what more can you ask for?